Hi, my name is Kevin, and this is a video tutorial on how to give a good tutorial. Some proof that I know what I'm talking about before we start. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I've taught for many years, and I've finished my instructor's induction course. So I know what it takes to be a good tutor for a student. Today, I have 5 key tips for you to remember that come from my experience as a tutor, as well as some research that I've done. So the first tip to remember is to keep it simple. The simplest explanations are always the best explanations. The student will remember them better. A quote by Albert Einstein was that if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So I live by that rule, and I think it's very important that you can explain it simply. One of the things that happens is that you have so much information up here, and when you just want to unload it on your student. So don't detract from whatever you are teaching. Keep it simple and keep it to the point. My second tip is to be prepared. Always have a lesson plan ready, even if it's just small bullet points or little notes. A lesson plan is a lesson plan, and it makes the student more sure that you know what you're talking about, and it makes you feel more confident when you're going to give your delivery. Also, be prepared for any questions that they might come to ask you. Alright, so this comes with knowing your topic well enough. Sometimes they might throw a curveball, something you might not know. In that case, you must reassure them that you're going to find out, because that makes you seem more reliable as a tutor. Also, when you're preparing, also prepare yourself mentally. Go in with the mindset that you're going to teach someone, alright? Not give them a lecture, teach them. Teach them what they need to know. My tip number 3 is pacing. Keep things at one thing at a time. So don't try and put multiple points across in a lesson. Try and make sure they understand the key point that you're teaching in that lesson. Keep it to one point at a time. I've been teaching. I know that if you try and teach more than one point at a time, the student won't learn anything. Okay? He'll forget the whole lesson, in fact. So it's essential that you keep it to one point at a time. And make sure they understand that point well enough before proceeding. Otherwise, they'll get lost when you introduce some really high-level understanding topic. So yeah, keep it to one point at a time. Tip number 4 is the student's needs. One of the things I've learned along the way, as well as in the instructor's induction course, was to let the student come to their own conclusions. So you know the answers already as the tutor. Your goal is to make them understand those answers. So sometimes it's better to phrase questions so that they will come to that conclusion themselves. So once they come to that conclusion themselves, they'll understand it for themselves, they'll feel better about it, it makes them feel encouraged, and it's a better process overall to getting them to understand things. You can't do this all the time, but if you really need to get a really solid point across, I would suggest this method that making them come to the conclusions themselves. The other thing is, don't spoon feed them. If you spoon feed them, they'll become reliant on you, and it makes the process a lot slower. You always have to be reassuring them. They won't learn anything for themselves. So try not to spoon feed them. Try and make them, again, come to the conclusions themselves. The other thing is to learn about them. Learn about your students so you can learn how to teach them better, what their goals are, what their aspirations are, what their life is like. All these things factor in when you're about to teach someone. So I encourage you to learn about your student. Learning their name. So by the next lesson that you know their name, it's really important. Makes them feel assured, makes you have a connection with them. The connection is important when you're teaching, so they feel more assured that you are invested in them. So my 5th tip now is to be passionate. If you have enthusiasm, the student will emulate it. It's simple as that. Having enthusiasm is really important when you're teaching. If you don't, the student won't respond as well. You won't be doing your best to let them learn, and the whole lessons, all the time spent, won't be as efficient. So it's important that you show passion when you're giving your tutorial. Another thing is to keep it interesting. Alright? So what I like to do with my students is make them do a really high up, we call them patterns, but it has the basics they've learned at their level. So when they perform it and I tell them that, they think, wow, I can actually do this kind of things. And it also leads to another point, which is to show them where the path leads. If you continually teach them the same thing over and over, they'll get bored. They won't know where it's going. But if you show them where it leads, it'll give them encouragement. It gives them motivation to keep on going with the stuff you're teaching them now, so that they understand that later on it really does matter. Okay? So those were my 5 points. Let's just review them. So the first point was keeping it simple. The second was to be prepared. The third was pacing. The fourth is learning the student's needs. And the fifth is to be passionate. And as a tutor, you'll never stop learning. I mean, you're still a student as you're a tutor. So don't think that as a tutor you're high and mighty. You're always going to learn along the way. I'm still learning along the way while I'm teaching. I'm learning while I'm giving this tutorial. It's always fun to learn new things. And sometimes your student will show you something you've never seen before. And that's the whole gist of it. So you can pass it on. You're passing on this knowledge that you have. Alright? So it's a really good thing. So that comes to the end of my tutorial. I ask that you leave a comment below or a like. This is my final attempt at this, and it's for a university project. So any feedback about this tutorial would be really nice. Likes, dislikes if you didn't like it. I hope it's likes. I really need this. Yeah, this is for a university project. So yeah. I ask that you leave a comment, a like, something to tell me that I was on the right path or I wasn't on the right path in the end. Alright, thank you and have a nice day.